I do know that when a man is in his center, if we could use an analogy, it's kind of like the cliff edge, right? And then the woman going through the emotions, which often initially she can't control, it like comes up in her, right? I'm learning a lot, especially through you, about like menstruation cycles and the different feelings and emotions that come up throughout the whole 28 days, right? And beyond. And I know that we're more productive, we're more connected when we can reach an understanding of the fact that the emotions don't mean that that's how you feel about me all the time. It's just how you feel in the moment.
Yeah.
So if I can practice not personalizing it, then we move through it faster, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of guys don't understand that. They're all just like get enthralled by the emotion, and then it's like that cliff edge is supposed to be like strong, where the waves can crash against it. It now becomes part of the landslide and the mud, and then next thing you're both in the chaos together, and there's nothing like strong to hold on to.
Yeah.
So I know it's easier said than done, because we have our moments where I forget that, you know, but I think being a little bit more conscious of it, especially for men, like, okay, cool. In this moment, I can feel the emotions moving and shifting. Can I be centered in this? Because that's going to be the most beneficial thing at the time. Whether I agree that it's like the right thing, you can talk about that later when the waves calm down, and you can like sit down and really just talk about like, hey, where you at, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to speak for every woman, you know, so I'm not going to say like how women are in general, but speaking for myself, I feel like I'm like 4 different women a month, right? So it's like you getting to know those different women is like crucial, because I never want you to like just put me in the box of that one of those women, you know what I mean? Because every month it's the other ones are going to show up again, you know? So even if there's one that I prefer where I'm like, this is when I feel like my most strong and stable and like not too emotional and like motivated. Like I love being there, but I also have to accept that every month this other woman's going to come in and she's like super emotional and like sensitive, and she needs a way more nurturing. So like you might say a joke or make a comment that one of my women would laugh at, and the other one is like getting her feelings hurt, you know?
Yeah. Well, it feels like walking on eggshells for a guy until he learns about it and why it's happening. Guys like to know why something's happening. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like we have to be able to reason with it and understand it. That's just like the logical aspect.
Yeah.
Whereas for a woman, it's like, well, it's how I feel. And a guy's like, well, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that is genuinely how you feel.
Yeah.
Right? It's real for you and it's real for us. We just got to work out how to be able to communicate when it's happening and show up in a way that's the most supportive, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, like not taking it personally. Because when you say why, like you really want to know, like, what did I do, or how can I make it so this isn't the case again?
How can we fix it? How can we put an end to it? How can we bring order to the chaos?
Exactly. And it's like, and then what, like women or me, what I can do wrong is actually make it your fault, like make it sound like it is you, so that I also have an answer, you know, like, well, it's because you did this, or you shouldn't have said that, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
This doesn't even really happen often, so I can't even think of like an example is not popping in my head right now. But you know, I'll blame you, basically, and then then that does make it like an issue where then I have to like come in and be like, okay, next time I'm feeling that way, the only way you can solve it is just give me a hug and like, you know.
We did that recently.
Yeah.
When you were triggered, I got wrapped up in it as well, and I was frustrated and triggered. And then I came over to you like hours later, obviously.
Yeah.
Would have been better earlier, but hours later. And I came up and I just gave you a hug.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you melting yet? Are you feeling the melting?
Yeah. And I did.
Yeah, you did.
Totally
you did.
melting.
I felt a little bit of the like, and then you know, I was just embracing you. I wasn't, you know, trying to control you. I was just embracing you, and you were like, all right. And you started to like, okay, adjust to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that feels so good because I think women can feel like shame when they do get that sort of volatile emotional energy comes in, because we do want to be like that perfect woman too a lot of the time, of just like centered and nurturing and have it all together and nice and calm and, ready
Yeah.
to go. So when we can't hold it together and it just like collapses on our shoulders, it also just feels like, oh my gosh, like it can be embarrassing too. And we can have like this shame around it. And that's also why we can like want to push you away and make it your fault or whatever it is. So I feel like when you can come in with your strength and your grounded centeredness when we can't have it,
Yeah.
when we can't access it in that moment, that really just feels so comforting and reassuring that it's okay to be that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
It's almost
periodically.
like God knew that we would be complementary for each other in the way that we're designed.
Yeah.
Because that centeredness in a man, when a woman is feeling the chaos inside, if she can go to him and feel that it's safe to be able to hold on to a reference point of order when everything feels chaotic, it must be like a relieving feeling. But if a man is not in order when that happens, now it's chaos meets chaos. And so it's scary. A woman doesn't
Yeah.
feel safe. How can I feel safe when I don't have anything strong to hold on to? And then a man that hasn't practiced being in his center and being that order, then he's not going to feel good about himself when he's in the chaos of it as well, And some
Yeah.
women might hear this and be like, chaos, I'm chaos. There's nothing wrong with that. There's things wrong with order just as much as there's things wrong with chaos. We need a dance between the two. That is creation and structure, right? So yeah, I do feel as a man, the times where I felt chaos within myself that has nothing to do with you as my wife, but I just feel that in myself, it doesn't feel good as a man to stay in that for too long. We need order. Everyone does need order, but men especially need it, especially if they're leading their girlfriend or their wife or their family. They need to be able to know how to come back to center, And I think
Yeah.
we live in a time right now where things are chaotic.
Yeah.
Content is being thrown at our face at 100 million miles an hour. People are stressed about the economy. They're stressed about, am I going to find the relationship that I want? Like, am I always going to be single? They're stressed about maybe people being sick in the family or whatever it is. And as you start stacking all that on top, it just feels like chaos, 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 right? And it must be tough for women. I said to you the other day when we were having a chat about some coaching clients that I had, and one of them is single, and she's really trying to like hold up everything, hold up the business, hold up the income coming in. Single mothers too, just really trying to hold down the fort.
Yeah.
And I said, I feel really sorry for them because they're trying to find or create a reference point of order when that's not natural for them to create that all the time. It doesn't mean that they're not capable of creating it when they need to, but to have to consistently create it must be so exhausting for a woman.
Yeah.
Men can take on more stress than women. That's just how we're designed.
Yeah.
That's why I think men should definitely, as a provider, as a protector, and that really take charge and lead with that, because it would stress a woman out a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think even just in singleness, it's tough for a woman, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely for me, I really thrive in order, and like I need it, and everything is better when I have it. But it's way harder for me to access that part of myself that can create that for myself, that structure and order and discipline and like all of those skill sets. So when things are chaotic, I can actually be quite comfortable there in terms of like, I'm used to this and I know how to navigate my emotions really well by now because I've had to do it so much that even if it's like, like logically, I know this is chaotic and I need structure. There's not like this. it's not as uncomfortable as it is for you, let's say. Like when you feel chaos inside yourself, you know? Like for example, if we have a little tiff, you want to fix it immediately. Like you come straight in with the like, let's fix this. And I'm like, I need to sit more in this chaotic feeling for a bit longer, like way longer.
Yeah.
You know?
Much longer.
Yeah.
I put on my fix-it hat and I'm like, yo, let's
Yeah.
get to work. Pull the tools out.
And it's not because I like it and I like want the drama or anything like that. It's just that, I don't know. It's just that it feels like that's something I'm supposed to, when it's here anyway, it's something that I'm supposed to like really sit in and learn from and dissect. And I'm like almost like in this whole learning experience when I'm feeling all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
It's
know.
not ideal for me.
Yeah, I know.
But no, I hear what you're saying. I guess it's familiar.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a point of like, okay, this is me and what I'm experiencing. Maybe I can seek to understand myself more in this process, which I think is healthy. Mm-hmm. The goal in any relationship is not perfection. It's not to be flawless across the board with conversations, with not seeing eye to eye on things and all that. It's really about, can we learn from each experience? And are we continually repeating things that are keeping us in unproductivity and keeping us in blame and disconnect? That's when it becomes a huge problem.
Yeah.
You know, any person that expects to have a perfect relationship, good luck to you. It doesn't exist. Not on this planet, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really about, hey, if we sit down together at some point, you know, maybe you need a bit of space, especially if you have fearful avoidant patterns, and I have had anxious attach patterns growing up. My idea of sitting down and being vulnerable and fixing things are like, the timeline's like this for me, shorter. For you, it's a lot longer. You need the space. You need to be able to check in with your feelings. I'm like, I already got it. I know my feelings. It's almost like I wear it on my sleeve, you know? So understanding that you need your time, that your time and your rhythm is different, helps me to not personalize it and think you're being cold or you're shutting off. And for you, it's like, oh, Joel wants to come to conclusions sooner. But I do appreciate that he gives me the time to be able to connect with it myself. Because if I'm always forcing you to have to hurry up and connect with your feelings, then you would be inauthentic with me, which affects the relationship in a negative way as well. So I don't know, maybe someone's listening to this right now. You're like, oh my gosh, this happens in my relationship. It could be the other way around. Maybe your partner as a male shuts off and doesn't want to share anything. You know, we all have our underlying ways of trying to cope with hurt and not feeling safe, because we make something mean something and blow things out of proportion often. But ultimately it's about saying, cool, I respect your rhythm. You respect mine. We can sit down together at some point. It's not like we're never going to talk to each other again. We sit down and we'll just work out like, hey, how are you feeling in that moment? What did you need? What fears came up for you? Let's smooth this over. Let's see if we can minimize it over time so that we don't keep living in destruction and stagnation and start living in creation together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a difference too in like shutting down and just not wanting to address the feelings. So that's definitely something I used to do a lot more. I just wanted to kind of like numb out and not talk to my partner and kind of punish my partner as well. Whereas now, like, it's more so that I need to reflect, you know, and before I can like come to you and talk to you about it, I need to like get really clear on like, why am I upset? Sometimes, you know, like I'm like, okay, because objectively I can like zoom out and put myself in someone else's shoes and be like, yeah, that wouldn't really bother someone else, maybe, like, you know, on average. It's not like a big deal. So why is it a big deal? And I think that happens, that comes with time when you've done like a lot of self-development, you know?
Yeah.
So sometimes that's just it for me, and it just takes a while to really come around to it, because I'm like, you know, first of all, like, am I gaslighting myself? Is there something actually happened? Like, you know, there's so
Yeah.
many different like avenues you can take before you can like arrive at a destination.
Yeah, you can sit and psychoanalyze it for
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. And I can do that. I can really like analyze
Both of
things
us,
way
yeah,
too much.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, I think that's just important to like clarify that it's not like I'm saying that women in general should just like stay in the chaos and be in the drama and
Yeah.
you know, like for fun or something. Like that's not
Yeah.
the goal.
Yeah, well, I think as you start to understand more and more that your childhood blueprint, what formed at a very young age, within the first few months of being brought into the world, has such a big impact on how you relate to love and relationships, right? Mm-hmm. We are constantly meeting these forks in the road when it comes to everything from my mom's angry, does that mean she hates me? My dad didn't pick me up at school, he forgot, he doesn't care about me. Mm-hmm. My first love cheated on me, that means I'm not good enough, right? So we tell ourselves these stories as we go along. And then when we're in a relationship that maybe we really love and we're like, hey, I really want this to work. When something comes up where there's a trigger is like a button that's pushed. You're literally launching a nuke bomb trigger
Yeah.
of the stories that are going up like this, and everything starts to come up. I know I had a moment with you where you asked me about something and I noticed I got activated, right? I got triggered and my anxious came up. Even though I've done so much work around it, even though I coach around it, there's still those fragments that try and come up, right?
Yeah.
And the charge was there and I didn't give you the full explanation or the full story of what had happened in the past. And it came across exaggerated and distorted.
Yeah.
And it is because the anxiety, that nervous system was activated. And I was just like, oh, how do I I was like grasping at straws. And even I knew, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. And we
Yeah.
talked about it later. And your childhood blueprint brought up a deactivation where you like, oh, is this safe? Like, can I, you know, like I need to know what really happened and what's really going on. And then we could sit together and make sense of it and talk about it and be like, oh, yeah, it wasn't the full detail because your anxiousness was triggered off. You're like logically thinking, okay, that makes sense. You're not trying to play games with me. You are just activated.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, she's wanting to come in and actually have a talk with me and we can smooth it over because she's not deactivating and shutting off from me. She's also trying to work it out too. We just had different ways of working it out. And I can imagine that people will go through this all the time without being able to make sense of why it's happening. And all they can relate to is, I feel this. And the feelings sometimes are not fun. They're really not fun, right?
Yeah.
But if you can sit down and actually realize like, yo, we are fully grown adults with tiny little child programs in us that get activated from time to time. If we can work out that, the next time something comes up, it doesn't have power over you. That charge isn't as prominent because you faced off with it and learned from it, you know? So yeah, there's so many different lessons along the way with like forgiveness and trusting and all these things that happen with people in relationships. And yeah, just feeling safe is like a big one for people, and communication is a huge thing to feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the attachment styles, that's like so big because it was something that I learned and I utilized in like a section of my coaching, but I didn't make it like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And when I took the test myself, in the relationship I was in, and, you know, like you're kind of going to answer the questions based on where you're at in that time.
Yeah.
So I was leaning a lot more anxious at that time. So I thought that I was anxiously attached. And then it wasn't until that we got together and then I took the test again and I was fearful avoidant.
So some dismissiveness came in along with the anxious where you like were swinging like this. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have an anxious attachment, right?
Yeah.
So with mine, the fearful avoidant, it's like I can be anxious with an avoidant person, or more avoidant with an anxious person.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting. And it's been so helpful that you already had that known, because it just cut through probably so much digging to figure out what was going on. Like when you came in with the, these are your fearful avoidant patterns coming up. At first I was like super, just not having it, I was like, just don't label me with these things. Like, that's not what it is. But then I like rewatched the videos and like, it was exactly me, like to a T. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that can really like help so much to just understand that there's a total reason and formula for what's happening. And I feel like that knowledge alone has really helped us not stay in issues for too long. We just kind of get it now. Like we had like the first few, and being together for like almost 2 years, I have to say I'm pretty proud. Like we don't have fights much. Like we've had like a handful of fights.
Yeah. Well, disagreements
and we just like
and things like that.
Nip it in the bud.
Yeah, we smoothed it over really quickly, for sure. I mean, look, it's easy to reflect back on the past relationships, and people say in rose-colored glasses, but I think when you're in a really great relationship, you appreciate it so much more because you know what happened in the past.
Yeah.
And I don't want to blame people in the past, because it's not about that. It's actually more of a view of me, like how I used to show up in relationships in the past. I'm like, wow, damn, I know that this is a fruitful relationship that we have because I can reflect on my attachment style and say, hey, you know what? As much as your stuff's showing up, yeah, my stuff was showing up along the way too in certain things that came up. And that's how you nip it in the bud and smooth it over faster and learn from it and grow. And then it just doesn't pop up like it used to. You know? It's very liberating.
Yeah. So how do you feel like you got to this point in our relationship where you're able to just like identify your triggers so much more quickly and like kind of de-escalate situations based on understanding our differences and how we handle those triggers? Like, because it's definitely, you can tell like just being with you, you have like this embodied skill set.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome, baby.
Look, the easy answer is I coach, so I have to be able to teach people how the subconscious works and how patterns work and all that, but that would be too easy to answer in that way. I would say that I got to do a lot of inner work before I met you, and I don't think you and I would have attracted each other if both of us didn't learn the things we did from past relationships. I have so much respect and gratitude for past relationships because of that.
Yeah.
I would say that forgiveness was a huge part of my healing. It was the biggest because I felt when I was younger, I wasn't good enough. I was always trying to prove myself. Really what it was that I was trying to close a loop of getting love from my father. And when I had a forgiveness conversation with him, I stopped attracting women that represented my father, which kind of sounds weird for some people because it's like, wait a minute, Joe is straight, heterosexual, but attracting women that were like his father, yes, in patterns and subconscious representatives, right? So when that happened, the healing took place, the forgiveness was there, it changed the dynamic of my relationship with my father. I realized I didn't need anything from him anymore. And then I just stopped being attracted to women that were behaving in the way that my father was when I was younger. And my father and I have a great relationship now, but he was dismissive at the time when I was growing up, and I was attracting dismissive, avoidant women. It was crazy. Like I started to notice that I wasn't attracted to those type of women at all. It's almost like I fell off a cliff. And then the next lesson for me to learn was to just get clear from them. Like, what do I actually want to create? At the time I was 32 years old, about that, 32, maybe 33. And I was like, okay, I want to be with somebody I can create with, where there isn't this chaos, where I can be productive with this person. And
Are you saying you're now with someone like your mom?
I don't know about that. To some degree, my mom loves to learn. You love to learn.
Yeah.
My mom appreciates beauty. You appreciate beauty. She has a spiritual aspect.
Your mom sends me
You have a
painting
spiritual
videos
aspect.
all the time. It's
She
so
does?
cute. And all kinds of like artistic reels.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'm happy, and that's healthy, and that's good because yeah, you can either take the good things from your parents that you can say, hey, I do appreciate those traits. I would appreciate some of those traits in another person, but they're in their own uniqueness with it as well, and also just making sure we're not attracting the negative traits that people will call maybe toxic traits. I would say unhealthy traits in people just because it's familiar, because that's not going to lead to life. It's not going to lead to growth and partnership and creation. It leads to destruction and stagnation and self-pity and shame and guilt and blame and all of those low frequency things that God hasn't created us for. So I think it really takes the checking in with yourself and healing, but also getting clear. What do I wish to create and will create moving forward? And making decisions quite quickly because you are clear. Like there's a difference between being interested and committed. For me, I was no longer interested in what I desired to create with a partner. I got committed to what I wanted to create. And that meant having really tough conversations, especially with someone who I was with before you, who is an amazing person. We just didn't have a few things that I wanted to be able to create. She didn't want to create. And so the decision was clear to make. And we could have continued on for years knowing both of us weren't going down that path. So to make that committed decision to say, I'm going to move forward and this is the route I'm going. I want to be with somebody that wants to create this, this, and this, like family, has this desire to want to like learn and grow in certain things. When I made that decision, doors open up, obviously, you know, and so it already started to when you and I started to connect with each other, reconnect with each other, because we met like what, 4 years before.
Yeah.
And then you just know it. It's like it you notice it.
Yeah.
Because you made the decision that that's what you want. When you don't make the decision that that's what you want, I think a lot of people are like waiting around for something to catch them by surprise.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's about making a decision, getting clear so that your mind opens up to actually notice when it's coming through, but also trusting in the process that God is also orchestrating when you call upon Him to bring that type of person in your life.
Yeah.
Or people in your life. Maybe it's friends first that you learn from that teaches you the type of person you could be, or could be created, or other couples, and then you end up meeting the person that you want to create with, and they meet you too.
Yeah. How do you feel like you were able to, because I feel like people can understand like getting to that point of committing, let's say to a new person or the person they're with, like you have to commit to what you want, right? But like for you, for example, you got to that point of being committed to what you wanted, even being with someone who you knew you couldn't be committed to that vision with, regardless of her being an amazing woman, right? And so many people are in relationships where they do know what they want to, but it's so hard to commit to that, knowing that they would have to let go of this person they're with. And like, how did you like, is it a timing thing? Do you just feel like, you know what, time's running out. I'm at that point in my life where it's like, it's partly age, or like, what is it, you know? Because everybody at some point, well, not everybody, some people end up staying with the quote unquote wrong person, right? Where they just never really feel like they got what they could have had.
Well, I know what you're asking. And there's like layers to it, right? It would be unfair to say it's one thing.
Yeah.
There's a knowing of what I wanted to create. There was a feeling around what I desired to feel in the creation with the person that I wanted to be with, right? And I think a lot of the time people talk about write down your list, right? They have the check boxes, or they've got to be blonde or brunette or Asian or African American or Australian, or, you know, whatever it may be. There's like these different things. They have to be 6 foot tall and whatever.
It's the wrong list. I wrote a list, but I had the right things on the list.
You get to have a list. You do. Everyone should have standards and a list. It's like, how, do I want to be with somebody that's sexually active? Do I want to be with somebody that, you know, with that person? Do I want to be with somebody that is career driven? Okay, it's fine to do that. But what I used to forget was how I desired to feel when I was in that relationship. Not just dependent on that person, because they did play a part, but also me. How did I want to feel? Do I want to feel congruent? Do I want to feel hopeful and faithful? Do I want to feel like I can be myself in the relationship? Or do I have to wear a mask to maintain it? Right? Because that never sustains.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people right now watching this and listening that are wearing a mask in a relationship knowing there's an incongruency that's within them, because this isn't a relationship that they truly wanted long term, but somewhere along the line they settled because they didn't allow for themselves to go through the learning process. I think if I hadn't worked through the healing processes, then I wouldn't have known the difference between a relationship that I'm attracting because it's familiar on an unhealthy level compared to, I know when I met you, reconnected, because we had met a few years before, but reconnected and I was talking with you, everything clicked in to congruency. And I even checked in and I went, is this unhealthy attraction?
Yeah.
Just to check in. And
Yeah,
you
me
should. You should too, right? And we did. But I'm like, is this unhealthy attraction because it's familiarity, or is this legitimately compatibility, like two puzzle pieces clicking in place that makes sense to the bigger picture?
Yeah.
And that's what I realized with you. It's like, no, this makes sense to the bigger picture. It feels grounded. There's a peace that washed over me where I just felt like, hey, I can actually really see this going in a very healthy direction. And I love that you were your own person. You had your thing going on. I had mine. We respect that about each other. And we came along and there was this, as you refer to, compatibility, right? Yeah. And we can talk about that because I think that's a really important thing that we could roll into next.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously I learned about compatibility, and being a relationship coach, I was like so torn because as I was learning about it, I'm obviously reflecting in the relationship that I was in, like, is our relationship compatible? And it was something I would talk to him about all the time. Like, do you think maybe we're not compatible because these things aren't lining up? And obviously when you really love someone and you want to be with them, you're just going to try to find your way, like, trying to like cut corners, like, yeah, this kind of adds up like around if you go this way, like it's all going to work out.
Forcing it to make it work.
Yeah. And, but it was something like deep inside, I always like questioned, like, because truly, like, when you are compatible with someone, you have really aligned values, and therefore there's less to fight about. There's less of this tension in the room because you know that, like, at least with the things that really matter most, like, the meaning of life and God and, family and purpose, like all of these really core things. If those are good, then like we can fight about like the little mundane, daily annoyances, and it's not like a big deal. And we know that. But sometimes we switch it, right? And we have those big things kind of off. But then like daily, like we love each other and it's so cute and fun and we have a great chemistry, right? Like a fun time together, and physicalities can be great too. So that can make it really hard for people to really understand compatibility. Like we want to just make the chemistry part the compatibility part. You know what I mean?
And they're two very different things.
Yeah, they're different. You
chemistry
can have chemistry.
is the feelings, right? It's like the feeling of the sexual attraction, the intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chemistry is what you feel when you first meet someone. Like you could have chemistry even with a friend. You can click with someone and just have a great conversation and be like, oh, me and this girl like have great chemistry. Like we really like feel each other, we get each other.
Do you reckon that's because it's like serotonin's going off and endorphins going off and dopamine because we're talking about things that light us up? Is that the chemistry aspect?
Yeah, I mean, there's just different types of chemistry, right?
Yeah, there's chemicals. Chemicals going off in
there's
your brain.
different types of chemistry and compatibility. Well, I would say this. Chemistry is one aspect of compatibility.
Yeah.
So compatibility is more layered. Chemistry like falls into that, but it's not the only thing. So.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I feel like you could have chemistry on an emotional level, or it could be a mental, or it could be physical. Like, I feel like those are probably like the three chemistry things.
Well, okay, let's talk about this because I think it ties in well with the compatibility and the chemistry. There is a theory, I can't remember the psychologist's name, but it's called the triangular theory of love. Okay. So you have in one corner passion. Okay. Just imagine a triangle. Passion's over here. Then at the top you have intimacy. And then down here on the other corner you have commitment. Passion, intimacy, commitment. Okay. Now, sometimes people, when they hook up, have like one night stands or a fling. That's just all passion. It's like lusty, right?
Yeah.
Then you have intimacy. I have a friend called Emil, another friend called Ben. We're not sexually attracted to each other, but we have really great intimacy. Like we can be honest with each other and share deep stuff and feel safe in conversations and really appreciate each other. And that's it.
Yeah.
And commitment too. Commitment's there because I have a commitment to my friendship and they have a commitment to me. And then so some people have that. They have an intimacy with a friend where sometimes, the guy gets friend zoned, right? But maybe the passion's not there. And then you have on the other side commitment. Commitment is what's required, obviously, for relationship longer term, marriage, having a family. That's commitment. A lot of people may have passion and intimacy, but they can't quite get to commitment. Maybe it's scary. Maybe there's some childhood wounds around having a committed relationship because they don't believe it's possible because they saw their parents break up and have no role models or blueprints for a successful marriage. Or maybe they just have made up in their mind a list of who they really want to commit to and they haven't met that person yet. So they'll sort of like roll along with it. And so a lot of people are in relationships where it's like one or two of those things, but not all three of those things.
Yeah.
And I found that my sort of final test, I felt, was in my past relationship that there were some things missing on that triangle. As much as I really wanted it, she really wanted it, it just wasn't happening. And it was a big breakthrough for us at the time to like understand that and realize it and go, okay, makes sense. Then with you, when I met you and we developed our relationship, we were pacing it. We're like, yeah, let's be friends first. And then it grew quite quickly into, wait, we don't want to just be friends. We actually really love being around each other. And that full triangle was on fire. It was happening.
Yeah.
But it wasn't this like stupid love. You know how some people are like, yeah, we are committed. Yeah, we're just going to rush in and make all these things happen. For us, we were like, no, this actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you said to me was that I was who I said I was. Like when you and I would talk to get to know each other, that was so profound for me because that's what I wanted to be for somebody else. That was a commitment. Like I want to be the person that I say I am. So the consistency's there. So I can be someone that's reliable because I've wanted that in a relationship too,
Yeah. Yeah. That was the biggest thing. So do you feel like everyone who is maybe not... is everyone who is in a relationship currently that might be kind of like questioning that compatibility because something's just not working, would you say it's most likely that they have 2 out of 3 points in the triangle?
You can have different value sets. I do think value drives intimacy for sure, right? Like if you value,
for sure,
let's say reading the scriptures and talking about God, and I value it too, we're going to have some really deep, intimate conversations about creation and existentialism and philosophy and life and all that, right? But I do think, I actually believe, not even to think, I believe that the passion element in that triangle, there's something ethereal about it. It's intangible. Sometimes we just can't explain why. There isn't that spiritual connection. There isn't that... It's so hard to put your finger on it. There isn't that, like, you don't get horny. You don't get fired up. You just don't. There's something there that's not attracting you and you can't quite put your finger on it, even if you try to logically break down why. And I know I genuinely have clients that I coach that say to me, he's amazing and he's this and he's that and we're doing work and we have the intimacy. He's ready to commit, but she doesn't feel the passion. And it's tough
And you
because it's
can't
like, it's
grow
just
it.
not there. It's like, how do you grow? Well, you can do things like, okay, let's work out our love languages. Let's like create date night. Let's do all these things. I do think that for the most part, most people aren't going to sustain a relationship, especially with sexual connection. Like, let's say even people that get married, knowing deep down inside, there's like this feeling of we don't have that fire that we can at least activate. It's not to expect that it happens every single time you have sex, but I just know that I can't go to that place.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to turn my partner on. He doesn't turn me on. Usually they're stringing along on the intimacy and the idea of commitment because they're coming from scarcity and lack. I don't know if I'm going to find someone to commit to, so I'll commit to them, even though I know that we don't have passion in our relationship. That's a bad idea because long term, across the course of decades, especially when you have kids, like we haven't got to the point where we are actively parenting children, right? So for us, I think it brings up even more from what I understand through the people I've coached. If you don't have the passion there, you don't know how to activate that with each other, it's going to become an even bigger problem once you have kids because then there's the kids there and you're like trying to activate your own passion to love them, and where's the bandwidth for your partner if you didn't know how to do it before?
Yeah.
So I know these are probably pretty heavy things for people to think about. But, you know, if single people are listening to this right now, or you're in a relationship, but you're not ready, you haven't got to the point of like marriage, if you're hearing this and you're like, wait, I'm going to start paying attention to that, that could be a game changer for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely just so much. I know like it can be hard for some people to be single when it's been a while and they're just ready for that person. And so like, I'm not going to try to make it sound like, oh yeah, just be single and live your life. Like some people are really like lonely and they're, you know, struggling with that. So I empathize with that and getting out of a relationship is so much more painful. When you just kind of settle because you have that initial spark and you don't want to look under the hood and really make sure that everything is like, you know, really like secure and you can really make this what you hope you can make it and you're on the same page and everything. Getting out of a relationship, it just takes so much, you know? Like, I feel like sometimes people really know when they're with someone who's not the one, but they drag it on for years because it's hard. It's hard to leave. Like, that person can become just a lot to you, like a best friend, a partner, maybe it becomes your business partner. You, like, get things entangled together, you know? Like, it's just something that I would really like recommend to take seriously to just, vet correctly in the dating world.
Yeah, don't rush that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, understand things like the triangular theory of love, understand the healing that you get to do, understand attachment styles. The sooner you can get your head around this and work through those aspects within yourself, the more clear you're going to be on the decisions you make. Mm-hmm. And I do think that when you're clear, the world sort of moves out the way for you. Things start actually becoming a bit more flow because you know what you do and don't want. Mm-hmm. If I'm staying in a relationship and it's gone beyond the expiry date, I'm settling within myself and I know I'm settling within myself, and then therefore it beats away at my self-confidence, and then I start telling myself lies. Yeah. Oh, will I ever find someone like this again? And if you're with someone that's controlling, will say, oh yeah, go out there, good luck to you, you never find someone like me. And then that perpetuates even more of a story that lingers when it's not true. There are 8 billion people on this planet and half of them are female, half of them are male, you know? Yeah. There are people. And I think some people can do the work, but they don't put themselves out there. You can't sit around hoping, okay, now that I've done the work, it's going to come to me. None of this law of attraction stuff. I'm a big believer in law of intention, which is set it and get it, right? You don't have to chase it like a mad maniac, but get clear within yourself, do the work, and then go out there and connect organically and meet people, You know, like a lot of people meet word of mouth and through friends. That's where a lot of people meet, through the workplace with each other or through friends, which shows you that you don't always have to be on social media trying to be somebody you're not, or on dating profiles presenting yourself with a mask, when you get to just work on who you are. And you could do all those things if you wanted to. If you're actively putting yourself out there and you're being real and you're open to being vulnerable, even if you could get your heart broken, getting your heart broken is often how you manage your expectations as well. We can't help but to still feel something. You're human. That's going to happen. But I think when you get clear, you realize how you get to set your expectations so they're not warped anymore. And it's interesting because when you and I first connected, we were willing to give it a go, with worst case scenario being we could just be friends.
Yeah.
And that was still awesome. To me, I was like, that's pretty cool because she's an amazing person, regardless of whether we were in a relationship or not. Of course, I really do want to be in a relationship with you. I was like, I could see this. But I was also like, I feel like I've got to that point in my life where I had the confidence because I knew what I wanted. And I think a lot of people get to take note and see, okay, am I clear enough on what I want and how I desire to feel? Do I understand myself enough to be able to start trusting the decisions that I make?
Yeah. That was the beauty of meeting in our 30s. Because we did not have time.
That's true.
To waste.
Yeah, if you're younger, if you're in your early 20s, like, hey, just stand on the shoulders of giants and learn from us and go and learn the things we talked about.
We just did not hold back. And that's the other thing is...
Yeah, you didn't hold back. You were straight up. First date, psychology questions.
And... even because, I know it can be hard to meet people in real life, to have that like kismet moment where you just run into each other at the park or whatever. So maybe you're going to meet online, you know, and you can use Instagram or dating apps if that's what you choose. But if you are, then just keep it authentic on your platforms, you know, like don't make every post just like a perfect selfie and like some music line from your favorite song, you know, like talk about things that are actually important to you and like just filter out. Like you don't need a bunch of people following you because they think you're hot. Like you want people who follow you because they're interested in you as a whole person. And I feel like we had that because we bonded over like things that I was writing about and speaking about that like really mattered to me. And so there you go, you know, like we met on Instagram, didn't we?
Yeah.
So,
well, we met in person.
We met in person.
Said hi to each other.
We recognized each other from Instagram.
Then recognized each other from Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? So it's just like authenticity can save you so much time because you don't have to pretend. Like it can feel, you know, daunting when you're going on a first date with someone maybe and you just want to put your best foot forward. But like you don't even know who this person is either. So who are you trying to prove? Like, what are you trying to prove to this person?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, let them be worthy of you and vice versa. Like, you don't have to worry about being good enough for someone else. You know? Yeah. You just have to be good enough for yourself. Like, you have to like yourself. That's really important. You have to just really know, like, no, I would rather be alone because I like my own company than to be with someone who doesn't value me, who doesn't see me, and is just going to waste my time.
Yeah.
You know?
That I am good enough is a big thing. There are a lot of people who still live in a hallucination, which is a limiting story. This story they tell themselves that they're not good enough.
Yeah.
And it affects the decisions they make with relationships. I remember one of these movies. Actually, there were two movies that I watched, right? There were two movies when I was younger that absolutely ruined me. Hitch with Will Smith.
Oh, I
he
love
goes
that movie.
all out, jet skis, huge flowers, like just really trying to impress a woman. And the other one was Good Luck Chuck, where every woman he dated ended up breaking up with him or he broke up with them and then they ended up getting married with somebody next, and he met Jessica Alba in the movie,
yeah.
and he does everything to try and win her over. And so as a young guy reaching 12, 13 years old, which is a crucial time in your life, because now you're starting to think about dating and relationships and girls as a guy. So I was like, man, I got to be like that. These really cool guys, Dane Cook and Will Smith, I got to be like them. That's how you win the woman. So it's like, you got to prove yourself. It made sense to me. You got to prove yourself, show that you're a provider, show that you're a protector, show that you will look after them. So that's what I did. And, you know, like somebody that's unhealed can say, I got taken advantage of. You can have resentment. We call it an angry altruist in the procrastination type system that I created. And this is where you give and give and give and don't get back in return what you were giving. So you start to resent the person. But the truth is you secretly resent yourself.
Yeah.
It's not the person. You resent you because you gave away so much, even though the person didn't explicitly ask you to give them all the things. They will go along with it too.
Yeah.
And so when you heal and realize I am enough, you realize that you don't need to give so many of the things, that your time is a present in the presence just as much as the person across from you. And if you feel like that person thinks that your time is a present but theirs isn't, then you're probably going to have a mismatch in belief systems. So really check in and work on your good enough story. If you want a fruitful, productive relationship, find someone that's worked on their good enough story too, and you can grow together and flourish.
Yeah.
You know, and like, look, the work never stops. You definitely continue to work on fragments of yourself, and at some point you do have to get on the field and make it happen, right? But as much as you can, like, get a coach, get a mentor, get a therapist, work with people. When things work properly and they're clear, they don't take as long as you would think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Self-resentment, that's a big one.
Yeah.
We usually don't think about self-resentment. We just think about resentment, and we project that onto who we're with. And when we get hurt in a relationship, whether it's, you know, getting cheated on or betrayed in some way, and then staying in that relationship and continuing to be angry and kind of punish that person and just keep that cycle of pain going and going and going. I mean, if you can truly forgive someone, that resentment is gone, you know, and you can move forward. But sometimes we try to think we can forgive and stay with that person. But if it goes against your own values, you know, if you just believe like what this person did strongly goes against your core values, I mean, yeah, you're going to resent yourself for just accepting that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that there's a difference in forgiveness, in that process of forgiveness, that just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you enable their behavior. You let go of the story that's held around it so it doesn't have the charge over your life like it used to. And I think a lot of people do this. They'll like feel like I got hard done by, so I'm going to hold on to something just to feel like I got justice. But there is no justice. You're actually affecting your own self, because now you're occupying your mind thinking about that person, getting frustrated about that person, telling yourself stories about how it could have been, which is stagnation, instead of moving into creation and saying, I'm accepting, releasing, letting it go, and moving forward with my life now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is when people want to stay in the relationship after that happens.
Right.
You know, like, do you feel like people can forgive and also stay without that being enabling the behavior? Or do you think that sends a message to the person that they can do that again?
Well, behavior must change after that. Otherwise, that person hasn't truly understood the process of forgiveness.
Yeah.
They haven't received the possibility of transformation that could take place. So, yeah, I think you get to forgive and you get to see, does this forgiveness equal growth in this relationship? And if it doesn't, they're not the person for you. You're
Yeah.
not meant to be in a relationship with someone because it's reached its expiry point.
Yeah.
Some relationships have an expiration date. They just
Yeah.
do, because of the fact that that person's not willing to go to the level that you are to transcend the trauma, the excuses, the blame, the shame, all the things. They're not willing to go there. And sometimes when this happens, that person can turn around and start attacking you. They're not really attacking you. They're trying to stop you from going to that level of transcendence because they are scared to go there themselves. The power of your relationship is correlated with how deep you can go together, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get to a level where you just don't ever want to go back to where you were because you know how much greater it is where you are now.
Yeah.
That other person may never have a slice of that in their entire life while they're here on earth. It just may never happen for them. Question is, do you want to live your whole entire life with that person that's not willing to go to that place? Some things we can compromise on. Some things are too big of a compromise to continue with it.
Yeah.
Depends how much you value growth. Some people could be ignorantly blissed out in their relationship and be like, I don't really care too much for personal development. I don't really care too much about creating things with the partner. And they live in a place which somebody that's done a lot of work would see as a limitation. But to them, maybe that feels like the glass ceiling has a little bit more room for them and they're totally fine with that. Whereas some people want to smash the whole glass ceiling and say, I got standards on where I want to take this. I have a bigger vision for a relationship. I want to live in more potential. I want to attract someone in my life that wants to play at a high level too. Some people don't want that. Some people do.
Yeah. I
Or
think,
you could want it. Do you want to work for it too? Do you want to create
Yeah.
that in your life? Is a different story altogether.
well, the bottom line is whether you're in a relationship or single, right? Like, relationships aren't everything. Like, the relationship itself isn't the goal. Isn't like, like, oh, I found the person, my soulmate, and now like life is complete.
Yeah.
Like, you still have your life. Like, you still have your mission and your purpose. And so the relationship is like it's your partner, right? It's you guys now, because two is better than one. And you can now like just achieve this at a greater capacity with each other. And so that's why I believe it's so important to have like just a beautiful, healthy, loving relationship where you feel like you have the energy to go after other things and tackle bigger fish than like your own little small relationship problems every day.
Yeah. That's true.
Because it becomes a very self-centered life when you just all consumed by your relationship problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it starts to feel like, is this it? Because it's very hard to really feel like this success in life when you go back home every day to like this hostile environment and someone sleeping on the couch, and it's just not nice. Like, you just want to feel like your partner is like this safe haven that you can lay your head on when the world itself is already challenging enough and things are going to be thrown at you throughout life at different times that you don't see coming. Like, that's what you can for sure expect, is that you will have unexpected challenges,
Yeah.
so you just want to really have that solid person. And that's why it's like, and if you don't have that, it's totally okay. Be single and be solid within yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you don't want to feel like a stranger in your own home. You want a partner you can create with.
Yeah.
I saw a breakdown in a study recently where it said that married couples excel in almost every area of life, right? That's not to say that every marriage is perfect. No, it's not. But there is a higher chance of excelling in so many different pillars of life. And one of them was that a man that's married, and if he has kids, tends to be the priority pick when it comes to getting a job. Because employers want to see if there's a man that has the responsibility to look after his family, he's more trustworthy than some young early 20s kid that could probably party and call in sick and not show up for work and bounce around from ship to ship. So that's just one example.
Yeah.
The other one was what you shared with me the other day. We were talking about this and you said, yeah, like your partner holds you up when it comes to what you eat, right? With your health. What were you saying? You said something about like longevity. They live longer.
Oh, right. I was saying, were we watching like a movie or something? And I was saying that when you, for example, if you get sick and you're older and you're married, you have this inner will to get better because you don't want to leave your partner behind. Right. I was saying when you're older and alone and you get sick, you can kind of feel like, well, I have no one here anyways. And I feel like this will to live is so much a part of us getting healthy. You know, there's like this inner like flame that's like says like I want to be here or I don't. Yeah. You know? And I feel like that will to live is just stronger when you know you have a partner that's like here loving you and wants you to stay here. You're like, yeah, I don't want to leave them behind, you know?
Yeah. It's like purpose, right? You have a purpose to be able to share something with someone, to create something together. And I feel like God created us for a purpose, every single person. Even in nature, if you look at nature, cells inside nature itself collapse on itself and atrophy when it no longer is functioning for purpose. It actually dies. It kills itself. And it makes us think like, whoa, if I'm not living for whatever, it could be your dog, it could be your friendship circle in your community, it could be, you know, God and your church members, it could be your wife, your husband, your kids. We all are designed to have purpose. And I think relationships are such a great teacher. They're like the dojo for life. They magnify everything. You can't hide stuff in relationship for that long. It's going to bring stuff up. Whatever problems I brought into a relationship, now we share that problem together and vice versa. You or anyone that's listening, that's what happens. So it requires a level of responsibility and accountability now. We've been created to do that. We have been created to tend to the earth, to be responsible for creation. And I think it's such an awesome call in our life. But if we're always running from it, how do we grow?
Yeah.
Yeah.